believe we're ready. I will call to order the Monday, June 27th, 2022 Planning Commission work session to order. And I don't believe any public comments have come in, correct?
That's correct.
All right. Can we do a quick roll call, please?
Commissioner Bob LaSalle.
Where did Bob go?
Oh, he jumped off.
He's in the waiting room.
He got kicked out. Can't get the fiber optic soon enough.
Wait a minute. Whoops. I don't know how you do that.
Now what have you done?
It was a picture, so I just started.
Oh.
Should I go ahead and finish roll call?
Two-factor authentication.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Here.
Chair Dirk Schlagenhofer.
Here.
Commissioner Daphne West.
Here.
Commissioner Patty Gage.
Here.
All right.
Commissioner Bob LaSalle.
Here.
Thank you.
All right.
Excuse me, Cindy, how do
Yes.
I get my screen to
We've lost Commissioner West's screen.
There we go. Thank you. You're welcome.
Much quicker than I expected. All right. We've got a couple of work session items. First one is review to Oregon City 2040 Comprehensive Plan Draft Appendix, which is implementation measures. And I believe Aquila was going to introduce this.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
So we were here at our last commission meeting at the end of May, I believe, and talked through the draft comprehensive plan. And in that draft, we got some feedback that it matches closely what the vision and what we heard from the community when we did community outreach, but there's still a need for some more specifics. So I'm going to share with you my presentation and go through a few. Okay, so let's see. All right, so what we'll do tonight is just go through a little bit of the feedback that we got and then how we develop the implementation measures and how they can be used. And then really what I would love to hear from the commission tonight is if this gives you enough specificity to move forward. So our next step would be to take the draft comprehensive plan and pretty much the state it's in. I think there's probably a few wording changes that we'll need to make, a few kind of typo things, and then take that and the implementation measures to City Commission for a work session with them, and then we'll start moving through adoption. So what we heard at our Planning Commission work session in May was that the goals and strategies were in pretty good shape and basically reflected what we'd heard from the community and also reflected all of the wordsmithing exercises that the Planning Commission went through and the City Commission. But there was still this sense of kind of lack of specificity. Sorry, I had to slow down for that one. And how could we get some more specifics that would help kind of guide us in the future when we're trying to implement the comprehensive plan? So what we did is went back and tried to develop some implementation measures. And where those came from was a couple of places. One, we had already done an audit of the 2004 comprehensive plan. And a number of those policies had been achieved, either implemented or achieved in other ways. And some of them were no longer really applicable, but there were a number of policies that were still either applicable, had not been achieved, or they just kind of remain something that we'd want to strive for. So we took those from the 2004 comprehensive plan. And then the other place that we took some information for developing these implementation measures is through some of the redlining that we did. So that those wordsmithing exercises actually took out some of the specificity that we had already in the comprehensive plan. So some of the implementation measures are a result of things that were taken out because they were too specific. When we got to the city commission meeting, there was kind of this sense of some of these feel too specific, and will they tie us to doing certain things? Will they tie us to, making, preparing budgets that mean we have to do certain items? So some of those specifics were taken out. So here they're put back in to give a little more guidance and direction. And then the consultants went back and looked at the project advisory team meetings and pulled out some of the actions from those notes. And so what we wanted to achieve was this kind of balance between the comprehensive plan, which is this high-level policy guidance document, and then these implementation measures, which are more specific and can help implement that in the future. So how it would be used is as an ancillary document. So it's been proposed in your packet as an appendix. I don't think it would be adopted because it's meant to be kind of a shorter term document. And so as it changed, we would be doing these comprehensive plan amendments every time we were wanting to update it or change it. So if there's some references that are in the draft, they're in the comprehensive plan, which we will add, there isn't that wording in there now, but some references to this implementation appendix, and that it should be consulted, then we would keep it separate, and then we could use it as this tracking tool and to track what actions we've achieved and what we still want to focus on and what our priorities should be. And then part of tracking that would be these kind of periodic updates and monitoring the progress and trying to line that up with the city commission's goal setting and budget preparations. So my recommendation my recommendation for how to use the document is to kind of look at it on a biannual basis, have the Planning Commission look at it. Maybe it's around now or in the fall, kind of every 2 years, and look at what's been achieved and what the Planning Commission would like to focus on or believes that still needs focus. It should still be a priority. And put together an annual report or biannual report that can be presented to the City Commission prior to their goal setting and then in preparation for budgeting. And then we can use that annual report as a time to present like what implementation measures we think, or the Planning Commission thinks should be a priority of the City Commission, and then which ones need to get updated. But we could build in kind of this regular updating of the implementation measures. So that's really all I had for a presentation, and I hope everyone had a chance to kind of look at the draft, and I'm here to take feedback on on this idea in the draft.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's just start on the left. Patty, what did you have on the implementation measures? Any thoughts or concerns? The same thing happens to me. Okay, Commissioner West.
So I looked through the implementation measures. There was one that you had in two places. It was redundant, but maybe you want it that way because it is a safety issue, and the other was where? Was in another department. But so to me, no, it looked fine to me. It sounds like we're just trying to balance a bigger picture and flexibility, and so that we can move with time and current market conditions, current every condition, COVID or economic, whatever, and then being specific. And it's a tough balance. So I think that it looked good.
Thank you. Commissioner Mitchell.
So, a question first. Excuse me. So, when we review a development proposal, one of the things that we're looking for, that staff is looking for, is that that proposal complies with what's in our comprehensive plan. So my question is, is that something that these measures could be used for or would be used for? And I don't know if that's a legal question or a implementation, I don't know.
So thinking about the implementation measures that are drafted, most of them are more directed to, I think, city actions. I think they could probably be used as guidance for some of the development proposals. But ideally, like the development proposals meet our zoning requirements, or, there's conditions of approval and we're kind of looking at what's in our comprehensive plan and do the conditions support the comprehensive plan? And the zoning then should meet with the comprehensive plan. So I'm not sure that we could rely on an implementation measure in a land use decision, say if it were to be appealed and it's not something that's adopted, but it would be more of a guidance piece where we're guiding developers.
Oh, sorry. So the way Aquila just explained the implementation measures, I think that they would not be adopted criteria relevant to and if you're going to be able to change them every year based on sort of change priorities as sort of a working list of things you might decide to work on, then they wouldn't be approval criteria.
Okay. And that's what I thought. So
You'll be making sure that we don't adopt them as appendix to the comprehensive plan. Right?
Right. Okay. So with that, this, to me, doesn't get us at all to what I think are the shortcomings in the draft comprehensive plan. We need that comprehensive plan, we need policies in that comprehensive plan that we can, as a planning commission and the city commission, can look at a proposal and look at the comprehensive plan and say, does this comply? And it's still, to me, so vague that there's nothing there to measure against. And I think it's pretty clear that the city commission felt the same way, because they changed the word policy to strategy because they didn't think they were policies. And I don't think they are either. So, I've gone through this thing and I've got a lot of notes, but to me, we're missing the point. We're missing still what I think, in my mind, is missing in the comprehensive plan. And I may be all out to lunch by myself, but there's nothing in that comprehensive plan that we can hang our hat on.
So, I mean, the policies that are now strategies, they are pretty broad. Because I think they're meant to be interpreted over time and, you know, as time moves on. They're not really supposed to be that specific, and I don't know that the city commission did want it more specific because they took out a lot of specific items. The one that comes to mind is the piece about childcare as a way to support employment. They struck childcare, right? And there's some other areas, I believe, that they struck because it was too specific. And so I hear where you're coming from. I don't really know how we get there at this point in time, because I feel like what is in front of you is what we heard from the Planning Commission and from the City Commission. And they are meant to be these kind of broad statements that you can interpret differently depending on what's happening at the present day or how a development's getting implemented. And I'm also not totally clear how often we're going to rely on the comprehensive plan for land use. The majority of the land use actions that come through the planning department are really these type 2 land use actions, these clear and objective, do they meet the standards or not? Or the planners implement some conditions of approval to get them to meet the standards. The type 3s, like the master plan for Park Place, I think are going to be more rare. And even then, the comprehensive plan pieces that have been woven into the Park Place master plan are not, they're not that specific. They talk about livability and neighborhood livability. So I think if we were to try to get it to where what you're looking for, we're kind of starting over. And maybe that's what you're asking for. I'm not sure.
No, I'm not, that's not what I'm asking for, because, and I've said it more than once, I think what's here is what the community, is what came from the community input. I just think it doesn't go far enough. And you may not have heard this example, and the other commissioners have, and I apologize. I'm going to use it again because it's the one I can think of off the top of my head. We had a type 3 proposal probably a year and a half ago to expand an assisted living facility. And it was, at that time, the one that, since I've been on the Planning Commission, that had the most neighborhood pushback. And so when I was trying to decide, where to come down, went to the comprehensive plan. And in our comprehensive plan, we have a policy that says we should not establish barriers to development of facilities for senior citizens. Okay, that's pretty clear. I need to find a way that this will work, take care of what the neighborhood wants, but we have a policy at the city that we're not going to put barriers to assisted living facilities. When I look at this draft, there's nothing like that in there. There's nothing that says, this is what we want to have. Well, there is. I mean, I'm really struggling with how vague it got, how general it got, because I think it's gone to the point where it's not going to be useful. I can't imagine if there's anything on our zoning map. One of the things, the first meetings on the project advisory team talked about the whole process. And it was developing the vision, and then developing the comprehensive plan, and then going back and looking at our zoning map and our codes to make sure that they all still line up. And I can't see that there's anything in this comprehensive plan that would make us go back and look at our zoning map or our codes. Because you could interpret, they're so vague, you could interpret them to be, okay, what we have is right. We don't need to change anything. And I don't think that was the intention. And I'm monopolizing, and I apologize, but provide this planning.
And so if these implementation measures were adopted, would that get at it for you?
Well, not so much, to be honest, because as you said, most of them are directions for the city, not for how development should happen. We're ending up with probably a document that will probably be helpful to establish priorities for the city, but I don't think it's a land use document. My opinion.
Commissioner West, did you want to add something while we're on this topic?
Sure.
Okay.
So Commissioner Mitchell, I listened to the meeting last time, and I heard your same concerns you just said now last time. And so I was at least relieved that the staff and the consultant went through the code and did an audit and sorted through items that were relevant to this new plan and eliminated things that weren't pertinent or had been, finished or something. So we have that to rely on. I mean, it's not enough, though, for you. Okay.
Yeah, before Commissioner Mitchell keeps going, I think he's got a list of things he wanted to bring up. I feel like this document is more like city goals than a controlling document. Because if you read all of these, develop a program for providing affordable childcare options. That's things for the city to do. That really isn't anything, that's us doing something. That's not guidance for a developer trying to do something. Ensure an adequate supply of land for major industrial employers with family wage jobs. Again, that's something we're trying to provide. That's, again, not a controlling document.
Well, in that last.
I see the concerns, but let's keep going and see where we end up. Commissioner.
I had a question for Commissioner Mitchell.
Commissioner LaSalle,
It is, yeah. I don't know if you can see him or not.
did you want to let
See or hear.
Bob go first, or do you want to?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Okay, Commissioner LaSalle, go ahead.
Yes, I have a question for Commissioner Mitchell. Let's look at a healthy and welcoming community, and under implementation measures, the very first item states, develop a program for reaching out to representatives of nearby communities, participate in public planning processes. Now, Mike, were your concerns that we should be developing this program, or not quite that much detail?
Bob, I'm not sure I heard what your question was. Whoa.
Well, in the healthy and welcoming community section, under implementation measures, the very first item is develop a program for reaching out to representatives of nearby communities to participate in public planning processes. Now, is your thought that we should be looking at that particular sentence and then continue on to develop that program? Go that detail?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's a good idea. But Okay, so that, what is it, is it goal 1 that's public process?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, so that does relate to goal 1, so that's probably cool. And so does the second point there. Using a variety of tools, except it shouldn't say either, it should say through in-person, online, and hybrid options, because we need to be using all of those, not either one or the other. But then from there, the third one, that's a city thing. The fourth one, I don't even know what that is supposed to mean, really. Is it trying to define livability, I guess? I guess what I'm saying is I understand that these are implementation measures, that they're going to be changing, and that they would not be adopted. So they're probably, with some work, they're probably a great idea. But they're more city goals than they are a comprehensive plan item.
Commissioner Mitchell, how about the third to the last one? Provide for noise abatement features such as sound walls, soil berms, vegetation. Are we talking about the city providing that? Is the developer required to do that? That one's just confusing to me. Is that a goal? Is that code? Are we encouraging it? Anyways, the next one. Ensure to key public services such as water and sewer, key public facilities such as police, fire, and hospital structures have the capability to back up electricity during emergencies. How are we involved in hospitals? Isn't that private?
Yeah, we're not. I don't know what on there.
Are we supposed to give hospitals generators?
Well, I think if you were to review an application for a hospital or an expansion of, the Willamette Falls Hospital, that's a question you could ask. How are you providing backup electricity during emergency? So I think that the kind of balancing act, and it's a little bit of a dance of how do some of these things, the city implements some of these things through development. So while it may feel like a city action, and even for something in the goals and strategies about, in the goal under healthy communities and strategy B, it's goal 1 and then strategy B, it talks about actively seek input from a diverse range of participants and enhance engagement opportunities. So when there are development applications, that's something that we can ask, like, how exactly did you go about, getting input for this? And maybe that would be a place where we update the development code, the zoning code, to say, we need to see some other creative ways for engaging the community. So it's kind of it's a direction to us as an organization of how are we going to carry out our business, and it's also a direction to us as a jurisdiction of what are we asking for from developers, which may have made it more confusing for you.
Okay. Well, I think the consensus from the commission is that we're thoroughly confused, and we're not sure where we're at with this, if this is where we want to be, or, and I understand that there's not enough time or money to start over, but we don't know how to support this document if we don't believe in it. So I'm not sure what we can do at this point. I don't feel anybody really strongly supports this.
Well, I guess, so I I've heard from Commissioner Mitchell that in order to get it to a place where he could support it, there needs to be more language in here that is applicable to land use applications. So, just basing on the example that you gave with the assisted living. And so I guess what we would be looking to bring back, if anything, would be revisions that somehow tie some of this language to development applications. And I think where we're struggling with that, we as in the staff and the consultants are struggling with that a bit, is we had a document at one point that did feel like it was more directive, and that language came out. So we're not exactly sure if we were to go back and revise this language, where are we getting that language from? So it could be more work sessions. I'm sure you remember the work session we had where we went through every policy at that point and gave input on the wording for each of them. It's probably more efficient if you have something to react to. And I guess what we're struggling a little bit with is the wording that's in here is really reflective of the community vision, which I think you've acknowledged. And it's reflective of what we've heard from the couple of work sessions. So we're not sure how we would go back and tie it more to land use. But if that's the overall direction, we can kind of put our heads together around that. I think where our struggle is it feels like we might be making up language, whereas the language in the past drafts has really come from the project advisory teams and that kind of thing. So, but for the sake of time, I don't know that it's a good use of your time to go through every single item again. So I guess what I'm saying is if there's consensus from the commission to look at making the strategies more applicable to land use, we could take a crack at that, see what we can come up with.
Okay, let me say something else. As the Planning Commission, we use this document to maybe, Commissioner Mitchell's example, where we're on the hedge and we don't know which way to go. We use it as a controlling document to help us with decisions. But is that the actual intent of the comprehensive plan, or is that just the way we're using it and the fact that there's some policies in there and we're able to use those? We use them, but has the reasoning behind a comprehensive plan changed over time where cities aren't relying on the comprehensive plan in that way? Are we stuck in the past and we're no longer supposed to be considering the comp plan that? Should we be more focused on our codes and laws, and this should be more of a goal document? Is that why it's getting shorter and less specific?
Yeah, I think you're correct about that. I mean, I don't know that the intent of a comprehensive plan so much has changed over time, but Oregon Cities has, right? So that 2004 document was really pretty specific with specific actions. And I think that you are correct that it is more of a goal document that guides some of our more specific actions.
Okay.
I have a statement, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner LaSalle.
I'd like to refer to the existing comprehensive plan. Aquila, can you tell me how many pages that is?
The existing comprehensive, I could in a minute. I can look for that.
Okay, well, I don't need the exact figures, but let's say it's let's say it's a 75-page document. And now we're looking at a 4-page document to accomplish the same thing. So I think what's happened is it's become way less specific than what we originally had thought it would become. I thought originally it was going to become an updated, more modern, and of course shorter documentation, but I never had an idea that it would not contain some of the specifics that Mr. Mitchell referred to as our decision-making tools. So I think really what I would be looking for is kind of a happy medium between a 4-page document and a whatever, 75 pages, whatever document that gives more specific on each one of these items that we've discussed so far. Each one of these items leaves some questions unanswered. That's what I had. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm kind of feeling like for our use, it's not specific enough to be a decision-making document, but for planning and more broad planning, it can be a guiding document with goals, but it's not specific enough for us. And I'm not 100% sure it's supposed to be specific enough for us, but if we're going to use it, it would need to be more. So I'm not sure where everybody else is with this, but we could pass that on to the city commission and say it's not working for us the way we need it to work, but perhaps it's not supposed to. Any last thoughts?
Can I ask?
Absolutely.
Aquila, are you comfortable with it? And do you think we can make our decisions with this as they come forward with this document? So there's some room in there. It's the consultant. I mean, they work on lots of these things, so there must have been a reason that this all it has changed the way it is. Maybe it's how they work nowadays. Cities work nowadays.
Well, I think, so a comprehensive plan is supposed to be really reflective of the community, right, and of the decision makers. Could I use it? I think that I can, but ultimately, your body, the planning commission and the city commission are the decision makers that need to use it. I think it is in a place that provides us some long-term guidance. And I'm still thinking about Commissioner Mitchell's example of the assisted living facility. I don't know that that is something that should necessarily be in a comprehensive plan. It might be something broader, like supporting multi-generational ways of aging in place within a community, kind of a statement. And so I don't know exactly what the thought process was in 2004 when it was updated, but at this recent go-around, the idea was to streamline it and to make some higher level goal statements with fewer specific policies in it.
So we'll rely on our code.
Yeah, right. I mean, we should rely on the code, and I think that you will be able to make some interpretations as projects come up and looking at what the comprehensive plan has to say about housing, and does a particular project kind of meet that goal at that point in time.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so what message do we want to convey passing this forward to, I guess, next stop is City Commission?
It could be, although I don't know that we want to take it forward to city commission until you all are comfortable with it.
I'm not sure that's going to happen, if we'll ever be completely comfortable with it. So I guess we could just, yeah.
Are we talking about being comfortable with the comprehensive plan or with these implementation measures?
Well, I guess my initial question is comfortable with the package, right, of the comprehensive plan and the implementation measures. But the feedback that I'm getting from at least some of the planning commissioners is that even with the implementation measures, the draft goals and strategies are not something that you're willing to support yet. Is that accurate feedback?
Yeah, it feels like they're not specific enough.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to put me in that category.
Everybody can
You can
have their
convey
own
some, yeah.
opinion, yeah. So, do you want everybody's input separately on this, or does it need to be a consensus
Some
from the
works.
commission?
So I guess both. I mean, I'd love to hear like individual opinions, which I think we've gotten that. But I think in order to move it forward, there should be some consensus that it's ready to move forward.
The whole package? The plan and the implementation measure?
Correct, unless there's portions of it that you feel are ready and portions that are not ready.
I was just looking online at what the state has to say about comprehensive plans, and I can't read the whole thing because it's written like state government would write something. But it says, the comprehensive plan becomes the controlling document for land use in the area covered by that plan. And there's not much at all in that comprehensive plan about land use. We ended up with a great set of goals for the city, and we ended up with what the community members on that task force said. But we did not end up with a land use document. And I don't know how we get there, for me. But there's a reason we've got a lot of commissioners, so that's just my opinion.
I understand the concerns. I do get it. I just don't know if they're willing to go back to square one and redo this as detailed as the last time. So I guess I am concerned. All his concerns, I'm concerned too, but well, am I going to hold it back, or am I going to, I don't know. You paid a consultant. I don't know if you're going to go back to square one. I don't know. And that's what it sounds like it needs. From some.
I don't know that that's, for me, what it needs. It just feels like it was maybe a three-step process, and we did two.
Okay.
And then we didn't figure out, now how do we turn these goals or strategies into land use items? Like, how are we protecting our Goal 5 resources? How are we, what specifically are we going to do for Goal 1, public involvement? I don't think we got to that step. We stopped.
I agree.
So I'm not advocating going back to square one. I'm advocating doing square, whatever it is, 3, 4. Finish it, yeah.
So some of that is in the document, but it's not, I think it's not laid out the way that you're asking. And I might have to.
Well, I have a question. Is this comprehensive plan supposed to be a working document or a theoretical document? Because at this stage, it certainly isn't a working document.
I guess I'm not sure how to answer that. In my mind, a working document is something that you keep going back and working on, and the comprehensive plan may get amended from time to time, but it's not, it doesn't change that often.
In my mind, a comprehensive plan would be something that you could refer back to for specific actions and decision-making.
Yes, please.
So, and, you know, I haven't been at all the work sessions, so.
I cannot hear the attorney.
I haven't been at all the work sessions, so I don't know all the land you've plowed so far, so I apologize. But we've got the statewide land use goals, right, that say, you know, ensure livability, goal 5, right? And then it's up to the local government to implement that by protecting riparian corridors and protecting historic resources and protecting scenic areas, right? That's what goal 5 says. So then you've got the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan says, in Oregon City, we value the protection of streams, and we're gonna protect those by doing X, Y, and Z. Right? We're going to protect those by having natural resource overlay district, right? And then we have the natural resource overlay district, chapter 1749, and we specify the buffer size, and we specify what can be planted in the buffer size, and those sorts of things, right? And so if somebody wants to amend the zoning code, amend chapter 1749 to reduce the buffer, we go back to the comprehensive plan and say, well, this is how we valued streams back then. So we're going to reduce the buffer, we're not going to reduce the buffer. We're gonna balance employment lands against against natural resources and make a decision about the buffer based on how much priority we put in riparian areas and employment lands in our comprehensive plan. So it is supposed to be this in-between area. It's not going to say how big the comprehensive plan shouldn't say how big the buffer is, right? It shouldn't say what has to be planted in the buffer. It has to say we value riparian streams and we're going to protect them through, you know, zoning code provisions. And then the degree to which we protect them, we go back to the comprehensive plan and we look. So I kind of feel like Commissioner Mitchell is talking about sort of zoning. I'm not sure if Mitchell is talking about zoning code level things, and Aquila is talking about goal things, and we're not in the middle, right? And I would encourage you to steer to the middle of that. Is there a way you can not be as specific as the code, but guide your thinking about the code with the plan? And, you know, and I think what you're saying is it doesn't go far enough to say what the values are for these goal resources, right?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Do you have, one of the things that's, I don't know if it was in tonight's packet or not, but there was a document where it took the strategies, I think it was the strategies, and then off to the side, it listed what goal it applied to?
Yeah, that is in the draft comp plan on page 19. Might be able to bring that out. Let's see. Exit full screen. But yeah, so if you have the draft comprehensive plan, which is in the packet, on page 19, there's a table.
Commissioner West, can we borrow that for a minute? Thank you.
Yeah, we'll bring it up.
I can't find mine.
Yeah.
Is it 29?
Page 19.
Get into the
in the 20,
What would the page say?
it says page 20, in 19 on the program.
Okay. I think I'm very close. I'm on 32, I missed it. Your page says... Oh, 19.
I don't know if this is gonna, if it's gonna bring it up, but,
Thank you. That was one too far.
or maybe you have the agenda link in your, get up that way.
I'm sorry, what were we looking for? What were we looking for?
That one right there, you're
Right.
not quite, to see where the state land use goals tied in.
Yeah. I'm sorry, it's not
Okay.
fair for the rest of the commissioners to sit here while I try to poke around in this thing. I understand, I agree with what Ms. Richter said. That is what we're looking for. We're looking for that middle ground. But if I think about it, and Goal 5 is the one, we seem to get a lot of public concern about how we are protecting our Goal 5 resources. So in my mind, we need to have a comprehensive plan that says, like what you said, we are going to protect riparian corridor. We are going to protect upland, the terminology is leaving me.
Right, we're going to protect wetlands independent of what Department
Right.
of State Land says. I mean,
Right.
and I'm not saying that was what the policy should say, I'm just saying that that would be an example of one.
And I don't think that is in this plan. That's the problem I'm having. Maybe Commissioner LaSalle may be right. Maybe I'm too hung up on the fact that it's not organized around the state land use goals. So I have to kind of hunt and peck, search through it to try to find the items related to each goal. And maybe that may be part of the problem I'm having. Goal 2 land use plan.
I don't know if you can see that on your screen or not, but that's, that's how we tried to organize the topics, the goals. So we have these 4 vision areas, right? The healthy, welcoming communities, connected infrastructure, and then the topic area within each of them. And then we talked about how each statewide planning goal is addressed, or it's laid out. That's the purpose of that matrix. Well, so let me do this, because I'm not sure that we're going to resolve it tonight. Why don't I take it back to our staff, and we'll put our heads together and see what we can come up with, then come back with some expanded wording.
Okay. Okay, anything else on this one before we move on?
Well, just one thing.
Commissioner Gage.
On the implementation measures, are these, it sounds like these are suggestions, but not things that we have to follow in making decisions? Is it basically you get to where we were now, I've lost the page because now I'm on a different page, but the one we were just all looking on, page 19, when it showed how it ties in with a statewide plan, that these are suggestions of things that you should look at, but you don't absolutely have to use every one of them in making the decision. They're just suggestions.
Well, I'd say that's correct in that I think they're more than suggestions, but you're not going to have every single strategy always be applicable to what you're doing. So I think I agree with a portion of what you're saying.
Okay.
Okay, do we have enough to move forward?
Yes.
I'd like to add one thing, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner LaSalle.
In a diverse economy, move to that spot. The second to the last item says encourage private development of hotel bed, blah, 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 blah. I would like to add encourage private development of, and at this point, tourism services to include hotel, bed, and breakfast, blah, blah, blah. This would give a broader picture of what could be used.
Did anybody catch where that period goes?
Well, let's see, we go to encourage private development of, and then at that point add tourism services to include, and then that ends that part, hotel, bed and breakfast, so on. So I would be adding tourism services to include.
Yes, Chair Schlagenhofer, I did catch what Commissioner LaSalle was pointing out. So it's in the implementation measures under diverse economy, and it's the second to last bullet.
Okay,
And his request is to say, encourage private development of tourism services, and then I think it's in such as hotel, bed and
To
breakfast.
include or such as, yeah.
okay. That sounds good. Okay,
Do we want to go through these more now?
that might be a good time.
Okay. And I'll stay away from, everybody else should go first, and I'll try to, I'm going to stay away from the wordsmithing thing and just work on content.
Well, in that case, I'd like to have somebody trying to define to me, in the health and welcoming community, let's see, 1, 2, 3, the third item, for some reason, maybe I'm not reading it right, but I'm not sure that sentence makes any sense.
Number 3?
Yes.
Yeah, it didn't make any sense to me.
Well, thank God I'm not the only one.
Yeah, that one was a mess.
So just so I'm clear, are you reading the bullet that says recognize the value of diverse cultural resources?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And that one doesn't make sense?
It doesn't make any sense because it says cultural resources and integrate modern civic amenities, and then refers to educational, recreational opportunities. But then the last part goes into the city's preservation efforts. So how are all those things tied together? You know, to me, it doesn't make any sense.
It is confusing. Can anybody explain what that means?
So where this came from was the healthy and welcoming communities section of the goals and strategies. And I have to actually, I wonder if I have the I don't know if I have the red, oh, I do have the red line version. And so one of the strategies was about preservation. And we had, I think it came from Goal 2. And so Goal 2 is acknowledge, protect, enhance, and commemorate Oregon City's historic and cultural resources. So while we were here at the Planning Commission, going through some of the redlining, we included this note that we heard from the commission. It says, Planning Commission note, add language to highlight modern cultural resources, diversity of cultural and historic resources, recognize value of future resources. So I think the tie into preservation was to maybe make preservation a little more holistic in looking at what actually makes up historic and cultural resources.
Okay, let me read through this slowly so we can try to paint a picture. Okay, recognize the value of diverse cultural resources. Let's just pick one. Waterfall, would that be a cultural resource, or just describe something so I can kind of get a feel for where we're going with this? A cultural resource.
The legacy project with the mill and all the various aspects of preserving that from.
Okay, so the mill, okay. Integrate modern civic amenities, which would be put in a plaza.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Educational and recreational opportunities. Okay, it's starting to make a little more sense now. You could have some kind of a storyboard or something up there that people could walk up to and try to understand what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Recreational opportunities. What could you do there as recreation?
Probably, in that case, in that example, there's a walk, right? There's this vision of a walkway. Where you
Okay,
can-
all right.
Riverwalk.
With the city's
river-
preservation efforts, all right. See, that makes more sense now.
Well, my opinion is that if this sentence is left as it is, the city commission will absolutely tear it apart. It needs to be redone.
So if I might make a suggestion, if I am to take this back and to work on the goals and strategies themselves, we may not need to go through the implementation measures tonight. If you've marked up a document that you want to send to us, we could take that into consideration while we're kind of working through it, but.
Okay, and we're talking about the comprehensive plan, not the implementation measures.
Yeah, because
Okay.
I guess I'm wondering if we're able to get the comprehensive plan and those goals and strategies to a point that you feel helps you navigate through land use decisions, you may not need the implementation measures.
Okay. Okay, Commissioner Mitchell. How much time would you need to go through the comprehensive plan and add detailed, specific?
To the comprehensive plan? I'm not prepared to do that tonight.
And I think.
No, not tonight.
Tonight, she was.
Oh,
To be able to submit something to staff.
wow.
Well,
time do we
I
have?
guess I'm sorry, I'm not being very clear. So I understand, it sounds like that there's a few commissioners who have edits and comments on the implementation measures. And if you want to send those to me, I can review all those comments.
Okay. Comments that would make it more of a guiding document for us to be able to use in land use decisions. If we could make things a little more specific
You can.
without
I'm
going
not
too crazy.
I'm not saying that you need to do that
No.
because
Yeah.
I will go back and try to circle up with my team, and we'll put our heads together around the actual goals and strategies and see what we can do differently.
Okay.
Your comments on the implementation measures may help us to put our heads around that.
Okay.
But if you don't have anything, you don't need to make something up.
No, but if there's something that causes us concern.
Does this document have a timeline where it has to be completed?
Okay, so Commissioner LaSalle, I think you asked if there's a timeline when this has to be completed. The answer is no. We don't have any deadline that we have to meet by the state. Now, we do have a grant, and that grant has a timeline, and the grant funding will run out, but staff can continue work. It just may take longer. So this isn't like the missing middle housing where we had to adopt something by a certain time, or, sometimes you have a transportation system plan that you need to get adopted by a certain time. We don't have a deadline like that, but we do have limited funds for consultant time.
Okay, all right, so how about this? Staff, you'll work with the consultant to see if you can address some of these concerns. If we're happy, if the individual commissioners are happy with where we're at, they don't need to do anything. If there's some things we feel we could add to improve the document, we have some time to do that. And then how soon would you like to see our input if we chose to add it? A week?
Yeah, a week would be great, yeah.
Okay. And I don't think it's ever going to be perfect with everybody, but maybe we can improve it where we all feel a little better about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you send so we're going to redline this implementation measures, right? That's what you're asking for, if we want to?
Sure, yeah, if you want to do that, yeah. So I can send it to you in a Word document.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask for, ask for it in Word, easier to edit.
Okay, what was it now, a PDF? Okay, all right. Okay. Are we ready to move on? I believe we are. Okay. Work session item number 2, discussion of Planning Commission bylaws. And I believe Aquila was going to introduce this one as well.
Yeah, I will kick this off. So this is a topic that came up, I believe, from Commissioner LaSalle, when he first came on to the commission. And we've now put it on an agenda so you can talk about it. I would actually, I should have talked to Commissioner LaSalle ahead of time, but I would love it if he could kind of introduce what some of his thoughts were when he wanted to talk about the bylaws. I've asked our Assistant City Attorney here to kind of help us with bylaws, just to make sure that we're staying on track, basically. And yeah, so I'll leave it at that and see if Commissioner LaSalle has anything he'd like to start with.
I'd be delighted to, with the permission of the chair.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, it's interesting. I first brought this up to the Planning Commission in December of 2018. So the wheels of progress move slowly in government, but I had just a couple of items, but one of them is of particular importance. And first one is Article 3A, membership. And the last sentence on item A says, Planning Commission members shall serve no more than 2 full consecutive years. So that means that anybody that's on the Planning Commission for 2 years shouldn't be on it. That should be 2 full consecutive terms. And if I'm incorrect, why, please let me know.
We might want to say 8 years because that's the wording that's in the city code. It doesn't refer
Okay,
to
shall
terms.
serve no more than 8 consecutive years.
Yeah, that's what's in the code. So if we
Yeah.
We're using the same language.
Okay, I need to ask something on that. Speaking on my individual experience, my first term was 3 years, my second term was 4 years, that adds up to 7. Does that mean I can serve 3 terms?
No, because you could only serve 8 years.
I've only served 7 after
Right.
my second, so I could serve
So
a third.
theoretically, you could get promoted or
For one
appointed
more
for
year.
1 more year.
So do we want to call it 8 years or 2 terms? 8 years?
All I was pointing out is the language in the code says 8 years.
Okay, so do we want to put 8 years or 2 terms in there?
Well, that's interesting because if you put in shall serve no more than 2 full consecutive terms, that would mean that if you came on board halfway through a term and you served the last 2 terms of somebody else's term that left, then you would still be able to serve 2 more full terms. And by the time you got through with it, then you would have served on the planning commission 8 years. Did everybody follow me on that, or?
So we can't make these bylaws have any more flexibility than the code has. And the code says no more than 8 consecutive years. So-
Excuse me, Carrie, could you speak into the mic? It's kind of hard for me to hear you.
So we can't, the bylaws can't give any greater authority or longer terms than the code does. And the code says no more than 8 consecutive years. So however you dice it, it can't be more than 8 consecutive years. So on Chair Schlagenhofer's example, 7 would be less than 8, so that would be fine. You can't get elected for another 4-year term because that would violate the 8 years.
Okay, the other question, which is in the middle of there, sorry, not a question, it's a statement. Terms are for a period of 4 years. Well, we've already changed that, so we need to change that. They are no longer 4 years. Sometimes they're 4, sometimes they're 3.
They were only 2 or 3 one time, which was against the bylaws and the code, in order to get back on a staggered cycle. But now it will always be 4 years.
So technically, that was an improper term.
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Technically.
But what happens when somebody is voted in and, not voted in, but appointed, and it was to replace someone who was leaving and they only had a year left? So does that mean you're only filling in that year, or that you're starting a whole 4-year term?
They're
from that
completing
year?
someone else's term.
Right.
It's still a term. But somebody came out of the term and somebody is finishing
So does that mean the max
term.
you could do would be 5 years then? If
The
you're
most you
completing
could
a
do at
4-year
that point
term?
consecutive would be 5.
Okay, so that's all you could do, okay.
At that, I mean, then you'd have to take a year off, go to Florida, come back, and then you could have 8 more years.
Okay.
You'd get that opportunity.
I promise all of you that I did not intend for this to become so complicated. All I wanted to do was change it to, shall be no more than 2 full, and eliminate consecutive years and put in consecutive terms.
The problem with that is that for the reason that, I mean, we need to just put in the language of the code. I mean, we just need to reflect the language of the code exactly, and then we're not going to get someone using the bylaws and arguing that there's an inconsistency. I mean, if we just put the language in exactly as it is, then it won't create an inconsistency. So that would be my recommendation.
Okay. Whatever you need to put in there to make it legally accurate, let's do that. Okay, Commissioner LaSalle, what was the next one?
And then the next one would be in Article 5, Organization and Procedures, Item A. The last word on that should be law instead of lay.
Correct.
And then, that same Article 5, Organization and Procedures, item B, I have a little problem here. It states in the last sentence, if a quorum is not attained 15 minutes following the scheduled time of call to order, the meeting shall be canceled. Now, I don't think by canceling the meeting like that, it would be fair to any of the citizens who came to the meeting that wanted to make comments. They took their time to come to the meeting. I think the meeting should at least allow public comments. It wouldn't require any votes, and it would allow people to express their feelings about issues and not require them to come to another meeting sometime down the line. So I would like that sentence eliminated.
Okay, have we ever had a situation where a meeting started and we didn't have a quorum? Not as long as I've been here, but in any meeting, we normally know beforehand it's not going to happen?
Never in my plus 15 years working with Oregon City have I come to a meeting and we've had to cancel it because we didn't get a quorum.
Okay. Because typically we sort that out before we even start the meeting. Okay. Is it worth messing with then? I think. Anyone think we need to? Okay, no. Okay, next one.
That's all I had.
All right, thank you. Let's start on the other end this time. Commissioner Mitchell.
Okay. Right from the top, Article 2A, it says purposed and should be purpose. And then at the end of the sentence, it says make certain quasi-judicial decisions, should be decisions. And then in item C, Article 2, item C, articulating the community's values, I don't think articulating is the right word, and I don't know exactly what is the right word. But articulating is we present the community's values and commitment. But that's not what we're doing. We're ensuring that the community's values are reflected in our land use decision or something. I don't think the word articulating is right.
Maybe it's reflecting.
Reflecting.
Conveying or? I can't think of the right word either.
Communicating, reflecting, conveying.
What was the other word you said, Mike?
I said ensuring.
I don't see why we couldn't use that. But we'd have to fit in the sense.
We've got a window knocker.
Are all your mics on?
Our mics are.
Sorry. It's a work session.
A window knocker.
So if you don't mind me interjecting, when I
No, please go
Google
ahead.
articulating, one of the similar expressions that you might want to, well, you can say express, voice, give voice to, and I don't know if that suits more what you're looking for.
I kind of like that.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
I think that's a winner.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, moving on. Article 3A,
That's changed.
I'm not sure when do those charter revisions go into effect immediately, the ones from the last election? Are those in effect?
I don't know.
2023, I don't know when
I don't think they are. I don't think
Okay.
they've been voted on yet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
it
yeah,
passed.
they were.
Oh, they passed?
Yes.
I don't know. I'll have to look into that.
Okay, so whenever it is effective, that first thing needs to say, the city commission shall
Right.
appoint each planning
Yeah.
commission
Yep.
member. That's that. So in the, under membership, I suppose, and this is just a question for the group, in the code, it says that the city commission may remove commissioners after a hearing for misconduct or non-performance. And my question is, should that be in these bylaws? The same language that's in the code.
Commissioner Mitchell, where did you, you get all those points? I had gone through some.
In OCM, it's in the Municipal Code, Chapter 2.24.
Okay. Oh. So I was looking at I was referencing a different document.
2.24, it's 2.24050. A planning commission member may be removed by the city commission after hearing for misconduct or non-performance of duty.
So my question is, should we have that in here? Or is the fact that it's in the code good enough? And I guess that's kind of a legal question.
I think it should be in here because I think that the language that says failure to attend 3 consecutive meetings is a basis for recommending termination. And I don't think that's reflected in the code. And I've never seen any recommendation of termination for failure to attend 3 consecutive meetings. But I suppose that whether or not that 3 consecutive meeting failure falls within the failure to, the language in 050, misconduct or non-performance of duty, I'm not sure. But I would replace the 3 consecutive meetings language with the misconduct or non-performance of duty language.
Okay, so you would take out what's here and put in the language from the code? Works for me.
Sounds good to me, too.
And there's something excused or non-excused? Was there a differentiation there on, oh, that was the missing the meetings, okay.
In the city commission bylaws, there's a discussion of excused and non-excused absences, but that's not in this one. I would think that excused absence would not be a basis for non-performance of duty. I mean, if that's the language we use.
It would be, or
It would not be. If you've
Okay.
got excused absence, then it wouldn't be a failure of you to perform your duty.
All right.
Okay. And this is probably just me not reading it right the first time, but I think I'm on Article 4C, Vice Chairperson duties. Right at the very end, it says, and generally conduct all business delegated to the chairperson in his or her absence. I think it makes more sense if it just said in the chairperson's absence. Because you could kind of read that in his or her could be the vice chair's absence. So just change his or her to the chairperson's, just to make it clear. Then the next thing is Article 5, Item B, concurrence of a majority of the planning commission members present shall be required to decide any matter. What if it's a tie? So one person's missing, we have 6 here, it's 3-3.
That's a complicated question. So under Robert's Rules of Order and the general, the way this is structured and the way the city commission is structured is that it takes a majority to move any motion. So if you got an application and it's a 3-3 tie, you can't move you can't move to approve it because you won't get the votes to approve it. So it would fail. So the application would fail because you don't have the votes to move the application, right? You can't approve it. You can't deny it either, but you can't approve it, right? And so if that were to happen, I would encourage the commission to try to break the tie, right? Because I've got to get either an approval or a denial, or I'm going to violate the 120-day rule, right? So, but we can't approve an application without a majority vote. So at the end of the day, the motion fails, right? You can't approve it. It is a denial. How we write that up is a different problem because, like I said, I won't have the votes for denial either. So it will be a tricky problem. And what we need to do is amend the code to make it clear that the lack of votes means it is denied. But we can't put that in the bylaws because it's not in the code right now. So I can't create a process that's not in the code. So I appreciate the problem, but it takes a code amendment to address it. And it needs to be across the board for everybody. We won't want how the planning commission addresses it in their bylaws and then not in the city commission procedures as well.
Okay, thank you.
So if we put a request into the budget committee for physical devices for the chair to bend somebody's arms to break a tie, would that be possible?
No, I'm sorry.
No? Okay, well, okay.
But maybe we can fund a bouncer to do that.
Yeah.
Next thing, Article 5G, the next to last word on the top line, willing, should just have two L's in it. Let's see. I think the last thing was Article 6F. I think should say, in conjunction with the planning manager and the city attorney, the chairperson shall orient new members, because we always need to have our legal training. And that's all I have.
Okay. I have a couple things, but I'm going to leave them to make sure no one else has the same concerns. So let's go with Commissioner West.
Well, Commissioner Mitchell, you missed one typo.
Oh.
My goodness.
No. Falling down on the
5A,
job.
or Article 5A, it's public meetings law.
Bob already said that one.
Yeah,
So I
Commissioner
didn't
LaSalle
repeat
got
it.
that one.
Oh, I didn't hear. So, I looked at this whole thing a little different. I looked at the city commission's bylaws, and they really lay out a meeting in greater detail on a quasi-judicial meeting. And I don't know if we want to go there. The other thing is I was wondering how other cities do things, and I just thought it was interesting that if for in the future, why we would have two members of that aren't in our community. Now, the only thing I could think of was, urban growth expansion, urban growth boundary expansion. Sometimes there's people in the county that might want to. So that's a question. How did that get there, and what was the objective of doing that? Two members may be non-residents.
Well, possibly, for example, I was a resident, and now I'm not. During my term.
I'm just saying moving
But
forward.
I had to check to see could I stay on or not, or
Yeah.
was I going to have to vacate the position? And that made it so that I could stay on.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just asking, so, nobody else has any thoughts on it?
I don't know that that's unusual. I've seen that, the same type of clause in other bylaws in other cities. I guess the other thought would be if there's somebody who owns a business here, maybe they're part of the
Oh, there you
community
go.
in a different way, but they
Yeah,
don't
there you
live
go.
here.
I didn't think of that. Okay, I'm just asking, we're going through it. And on 6, the duties of officers, when you, on the last page, or on page 3, the chairperson may assess the audience at the beginning of the meeting and with the consent of the planning commission announce reasonable time commitments. Well, I was wondering why we aren't, well, we currently follow pretty close, it looks like the quasi-judicial meeting laws that the city commission has, and what was the last date of this? Is February 3rd, 2021. And it's laid out exactly how, 5 minutes for this, 20 minutes, whatever. The whole process that we use. And so I thought that this one was, if it said not compliance, but in respecting that process, then I would support that. It's the conduct of quasi-judicial land use hearings. So the page 10, timetable for staff reports, testimony, rebuttal, and that's what I thought this was referring to, but really on a broad and vague way.
Are you suggesting that you'd like to see that section of the city commission bylaws in the planning commission bylaws?
Yes.
Okay. And is that, is there concurrence, is there consensus on that?
I'd like to have that stated again. I didn't quite follow where you were going with that, Daphne.
Commissioner LaSalle, the City Commission has rules of procedure for their meetings, and I just took this out of their most amended or updated rules of meeting for quasi-judicial land use. So not everything we do is land use. Sometimes we talk about, just like tonight, we talk about updating a plan, or it's a legislative action. But, so I just thought it could use some clarification. So when in a quasi-judicial thing, then this should be, I believe this is our format.
So I think the reason why this is the way it is because it was before the city commission adopted the bylaws that had the specific times laid out. And I think the reason why is because if only 3 people show up, then people can testify for longer. And I think that the practice is to allow them to have more time if, if the commission isn't pressed for time. I have no concern with including the city commission's quasi-judicial procedures in the planning commission bylaws as Commissioner West is suggesting. But I do think that the commission has more discretion, as does the city commission, to vary that should conditions dictate. And the language of reasonable time limits is from the state law that says reasonable time limits.
Okay.
So I think that's why that is the way it is.
So we could leave in what's in here and
And then add
add
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
I like that.
I just wasn't sure, since I've started planning commission, if it was really encouraged to visit sites. So I've had sort of some mixed feelings on that. Sometimes I think, well, you want to see what it is, and then other times I'm thinking that you're, I don't know, that you'll have bias or something like that. So that's under Article 7. So do you encourage, prior to planning commission meetings, members are encouraged, well, of course, you're to read your packets, but visit sites?
I have a comment on that.
Bob has a comment.
Bob wants to comment.
Yeah, Commissioner LaSalle.
I think we should leave it in there because I, as a planning commissioner, want to have as much information as I can, be it via site visits, conversations, observation of other city meetings, whatever and however I can get information on a specific subject, I want to get all the information I can, and a site visit would include that. I remember a former mayor saying that he never watched any planning commission meetings because he didn't want to have any information clouding up his mind when it came to the city commission. I totally disagree with that. I think that wherever and wherever we can get information, we're in a better position to make correct and appropriate decisions.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I can agree with that. I think the more information we have, the better, and I think a site visit is a big part of that, because a lot of things you can't see in a picture, in a flat piece of paper that you can in a site visit, so.
Oh, great, I'm happy to hear it.
My only caveat to that is remember that we have to report the,
Ex parte.
having visited the site and reflections that we gain from that, and any conversations that we have outside the public hearing have to be put on the record so that all parties have an opportunity to understand the facts that you're getting from outside the public hearing process that you might be using in your decision.
Right.
I don't think that these also went into the length of meetings like the city commission does, that it's a 3-hour or after 10 o'clock, then we need a consent or a majority, and that they all end at 11. But if it's in the code, I don't know, maybe we don't have to, but it would also, I mean, if you're doing your bylaws, you could add that, or it's a suggestion. So there was the length of meetings, and then we haven't, do we need to delineate work sessions?
What do you want to say about them?
Oh, I don't know, length of time or public comment.
Yeah, we don't usually have public comments on, in work sessions, and is that a state law thing? That's just what we've decided to do?
I think
Where
it's
did
just
that
been a
come
matter of practice. I suspect if somebody came in and wanted to say something, you'd probably hear them, and that would be fine.
Yeah, because at our discretion, we've allowed people to speak before. It's not in our bylaws. Should it be in there, or?
I would think you would want the flexibility to decide to take testimony or to not take testimony, depending on the topic. So I
Right.
don't know that you'd want to put it in here.
Well, we could put it in there that we have the ability to decide to or not. But once it's in there, are we more tied to?
No, I mean, I think work sessions are sort of a free flow thing, so I don't know that you need to have anything about work sessions in.
Okay.
And then do we want what is it, the first and the third Monday or the second and fourth Mondays? Do we want anything about times or dates or times of the month in them? When the meetings are held?
Well,
Or is that all just subject to change? I'm
Yeah,
just
the only
asking.
problem is if you put that in the bylaws, then if you want to change it, then you have to go back and change your bylaws, which is kind of a
Okay.
pain. Because it says in there, twice a month. And we're also kind of tied in with the 120-day thing, so
yeah.
to me, that doesn't need to be in the bylaws.
Perfect. I think that's all I had.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Gage?
I don't have anything further.
All right. As I expected, most everything that I circled here has been covered except for Article 6, number 2. And I just need a little clarification on what exactly this means. I'm not sure we're doing it. The chairperson shall summarize the issues to be addressed and the criteria to be applied prior to the public hearing testimony. I don't feel like I'm doing that.
Seems like a staff thing, doesn't it?
I think you can just delegate that and ask staff to make the presentation, would be my
Right.
Yeah, or we can just change the language to say, city staff shall summarize the issues to be addressed and the criterion to be applied prior to the public hearing testimony. I mean, that's what a staff report is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, I agree.
okay. I found something.
Very good.
I feel successful now. I feel relevant. All right. Okay. Okay, anything else on this? And then so do we have enough direction for staff on what we would like changed?
Yeah.
So
questions?
I have one other thing, not related to the substance of this, but I think I need some clarification from the Planning Commission. So this bylaws document was not adopted by the City Commission, this one from 2000. It was signed by the Planning Commission chair. And unlike other committees, the code makes no reference to bylaws, the existence of them or who can adopt them with respect to the Planning Commission. The code talks about Citizen Advisory Committee adopting the City Commission adopting bylaws for the Citizen Involvement Committee, but it doesn't say that for the Planning Commission. So I don't think that the bylaws have to be adopted by the City Commission. But that said, I think you might think about whether or not it would be best practice to share them with them, solicit comment from them. I mean, they could adopt a resolution adopting them. It's your decision, but we need direction on how we're gonna, I mean, I can make these edits and get them back to you, but what is the process you want for implementation?
Okay, so after Ms. Richter goes through these, does the changes we've discussed, do we want to forward it to City Commission and get their input on our bylaws? Or do we want to keep them our bylaws?
I don't know that we need to. It wasn't done before, but it doesn't matter to me one way or the other.
Okay, Commissioner West?
I like the idea of them looking at them, and I like to be pulling the boat in the same direction. So,
I agree.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, it's not that big a deal, but,
Yeah, I'm not
I'd
concerned.
like to offer some input on that.
pardon?
I'd like to offer some experience on that.
All right, so how about yeah, go ahead.
Bob has something he wants to share.
Oh, okay. I apologize.
I couldn't hear you.
Go ahead.
Is it open for my comment?
We thought you were going to share something on that.
Yes, I was, but I was waiting for your permission.
Yes, please proceed.
Okay. The bylaws of various committees are different on this subject quite a bit. And in the case of the CIC bylaws, they have to go before the City Commission, and they give their yay or nay on them. In the case of the Traffic Advisory Committee, at least it used to be where they make their decision and it wasn't necessary to be approved by the City Commission, but we forwarded the changes to the City Commission as a courtesy. I think in our bylaws here for the Planning Commission are similar to the Transportation Advisory Committee, is that we can make changes to our bylaws, but I think as a courtesy, we should forward those, at the earliest date to the City Commission before our final approval. So if they did have input, we would allow them the time to do so before we made our final vote.
Okay, so do you was your comment to forward them to the City Commission before we do our final edit?
Yes.
Okay,
That would give them an opportunity for some input into it if they wish.
okay. How about that order?
Or after, what I understood Commissioner LaSalle to say is, we get them the way we want them, we submit them to the City Commission, and then whether or not they make changes, then we would adopt them after the city commission has reviewed them. Is that what you intended, Commissioner LaSalle?
That's absolutely correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable.
Sure.
Okay. I think we have a consensus. Okay.
So when we get those and get all your edits put together, I'll work on finding a time when we can bring it to City Commission. And then I would ask for 1 or 2 volunteers from the Planning Commission to kind of make that presentation.
Commissioner Mitchell? Okay. I would attend too, if you'll have us both.
Great.
All right. Okay. I think that's done. We are down to communications, and it is one item, update on the climate-friendly and equitable communities. I believe this is Aquila again.
Bye again. Thank you. Let me find my notes here. So thank you, Commissioner Mitchell, for asking for update on this. It was good timing. We had a meeting with DLCD last week to we were able to ask questions, and they gave us an update and kind of talked about where we were at with it. So climate-friendly and equitable communities is a program aimed at reducing climate pollution by 75% by the year 2050. And in addition, it's a program aimed at taking steps to redress past patterns of inequity and discrimination in land use, zoning, and transportation investments. So this came about actually in 2007 when the state legislators adopted a goal to reduce climate pollution. And then more recently, 15 years later, they found that the state wasn't making progress in getting to that pollution reduction that they were looking for, and particularly from transportation. So the program is, what it does is amends rules that governs housing, transportation, and greenhouse gas reduction. So the state OARs, Oregon Administrative Rules, so those will be amended, and then cities will have to comply in various, if they don't already comply. So currently where they're at is they've adopted a set of temporary rules on May 19th. They is in the Land Conservation and Development Commission, and LCDC is going to consider permanent rules at their meeting on July 21st and 22nd. So the amended rules will ask cities outside of the Portland metro area to designate climate-friendly areas. These are areas that are, you could think of them like town centers, really, or regional centers. They're areas where residents, workers, and visitors can meet most of their needs without having to drive. The cities within Metro were not asked to do that because Metro has their 2040 centers that have been in place for quite some time. So Oregon City is part of a regional center. Some cities have town centers, that kind of thing. So we're supposed to already be moving towards that. Then the rules also call for new housing and mixed-use development to support electric vehicles by providing electrical conduit to 50% of the parking stalls. And then another factor is reducing parking mandates and increasing local planning to address critical gaps in walking, biking, and transit. So a number of the changes that cities will have to make will come through their transportation system plans and whenever those get updated. And actually, I'm not sure when ours is due. I feel like it's soon, like coming up. I think it's been a while since we updated it last, but typically cities in the metro region update their TSP after the Metro has adopted the regional transportation plan, and then it's like a trickle-down effect where everybody has to update it to meet that regional transportation plan. So we're kind of, Metro's in the process of updating that now, so we'll wait for that before we amend our TSP. And then there are some parking reforms that are scheduled to take place by the end of this year and March of 2023. So the things that we have to comply with, the Oregon City has to comply with, are parking amendments by the end of 2022 that basically will not, we will no longer be able to require parking for new development within 3/4 of a mile of frequent transit. And then there are some other the parking reforms that need to be made by March of 2023. We need to do a little bit of auditing through our code to see what may or may not need to be changed. With that first set of parking amendments, we don't actually have to make a code adjustment at this time, because we can just rely on what's in the state statutes. And so what we will do, what staff will do, is kind of put together a white paper or some kind of easy-to-follow guidelines, and then work towards, updating the code, and maybe when we're doing a more comprehensive code update. And then there's a couple more things that we will have to pay attention to. So after June of 2024, all transportation modeling requirements will have to comply with new rules. And then as of June 2025, we'll implement multiple transportation performance standards for plan amendments and development review. I'm not sure what those look like yet, so I would imagine that would be part of our TSP work. To me, that sounds like things that you figure out when you're talking about your transportation system plan. And then finally, the last piece that the state is asking cities to look at are their housing needs analysis, and which they are also calling housing capacity analysis. So I had to double check that that wasn't something new in addition to housing needs analysis. And we, since we just updated ours, we don't have to adopt a new one until 2026. So of the whole program that's been adopted, right now, there's a few parking things that we'll be looking at to make some changes to. So that is my update on that program. More to come as it unveils itself to us.
I got an instant question. What type of development was that referring to with the parking within 3/4 of a mile of public transit? Is it high density, all development?
I think it's all development, new development.
Okay. Can you reread that? What is the requirement for parking within 3/4 of a mile? Is no requirement?
Right.
You could build
Okay,
a neighborhood without parking.
So this is the words from their implementation guide.
Okay.
Reform near transit, no parking mandates allowed within 3/4 of a mile of light or heavy rail stations or half a mile of frequent transit corridors.
Okay, so no mandates, but if somebody chose to build a neighborhood with a garage,
Sure,
they still
right.
could.
Yeah,
But we couldn't require it,
right,
regardless of the zoning. R8,
correct. Yeah,
Okay.
that's what this is saying. And just to clarify, so it's saying that it applies to development applications submitted after December 31st, 2022. And then we can either apply directly the state administrative rules or amend our local development standards. I think for just implementation, like making it easier to implement, eventually we'll want to amend our own code. But I'm not sure that we have the capacity to get to that by the end of this year, so.
So that hand behind our back on making decisions that the state had, they just tightened it up a little bit more.
Commissioner West.
Aquila, so does that mean, let's say downtown on Main Street, there's, somebody did work on the bottom and residential on top, that they wouldn't have to put in any parking?
I think that's what that means, right?
Wow.
The point, if I'm trying to look at it from the perspective of the state, if you don't provide parking, I hate to say it out loud, if you don't provide parking, you're not going to have a car. You're going to use transit. Right. That's, right, Commissioner Gage, that's what the hope is, yeah.
But you know, in reality, they're going to be parking wherever they can find a spot. They're going to be sharing restaurant parking, they're going to be sharing business parking, they're going to be parking because people have cars. Because the average household has 2 jobs just to be able to afford the household. So, okay. All right. I can't really say much more about it. Thank you.
I wonder if they're going to provide any guidance on what frequent means. Because TriMet service in Oregon City sucks. Pardon my language.
Well, I think
it's not good.
It's a category, though, isn't frequent bus service
Yeah.
is a category that TriMet uses. There's that is a label, that is a term of art to describe a certain amount of service. So
Okay.
I don't know whether there are any frequent bus services in Oregon City, TriMet lines in Oregon City.
And that's something I don't know either. I think that the state was, in our call last week, was defining it as like every 15 minutes, right? So it's coming 4 times per hour. Yeah, so as I get more information or as we need to amend the code, well, we'll bring this back to you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for staff on that one?
I would like to make one other announcement that I did not put on the agenda. I do have some staffing updates.
Oh, great, yes, thank you.
And so we do have a planning manager now, and that is someone that you know, Pete Walter. Has come, yeah, I'm excited about the knowledge and history that he brings. And we have made, we will be getting 2 new assistant planners starting in July. I don't know if all of you knew, but Kelly Reed has resigned. Her last day will be Friday. She got a position with DLCD, so it's a good career move for her. Loss for us, but I'm happy for her in her career move. So the timing worked out that we were already recruiting to replace Diliana's position, and so we took the top 2.
Okay. Nothing else? And
I have a question, going back to the,
Commissioner Sal.
going back to the climate-friendly and equitable communities. Did that law or ordinance, whatever it is, did that come from the state legislature?
It did, yeah.
Well, no, it came from rules, right? I mean, the obligation to implement climate-friendly strategy comes from state law, but the no parking within 3/4 mile is a rule
Correct, right.
from Land Conservation and Development Commission.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, I believe we're adjourned.